Will the Bengals finally get a week 2 win under Zac Taylor?
They ain't getting it from Jacksonville. Y'all better look somewhere else. We'll tell you why here on a crossover of Bengals and Jaguars.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome into a special Locked On crossover. It's Locked On Jaguars, Tony Wiggins. I'm Locked On Bengals host James Rapien, and it's time to preview the battle of the number one picks. You already had one of those last week, Tone, but you get another one this week.
That's right.
Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. Yeah, that's rare. Back-to-back weeks having that. By the way, this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Crossover Thursday, always presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Tony, let's start with the 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars, who ran all over the Carolina Panthers in week 1. What is the biggest storyline this week going into Sunday's game?
Well, good to see you, James. And it is a battle. The second week in a row, the Jaguars have to kill another predator, another cat. Last week it was a panther. This year's going to be a tiger. This is a little harder to do because tigers are big, right? But I think the key to last week's game was them adapting and really going with the new thing. It gets real easy, man. When you come out, you get this new thing, sort of like we saw Caleb Williams on Monday night. Everything's going well, but what happens when somebody punches you in the face and things don't go well? So Mother Nature punched the Jaguars in the face, and there was like a 40-minute rain delay, right? And the rain never came. But when they came back out, they didn't seem like the same team. So they had to switch it up a little bit, and they had to rely on something that was missing in the past that Liam Cohen, the head coach, swore that they would have this time. They just got really, really physical on both lines of scrimmage and started to run the football, and Travis Etienne ended up with 143 yards. Physicality made up for the fact that they lost a little bit of their mojo and their chemistry during the rain delay, and that's something they weren't able to do in the past.
Yeah, I think that it's a really good point to bring up, because I think when I think of Jacksonville, I'm thinking of Trevor Lawrence, thinking of Brian Thomas, thinking of Travis Hunter, thinking of flash and big plays, and I'm not thinking of Travis Etienne as much. I'm not thinking of that ground attack. And for a Bengals defense that did pretty well against the run in the week 1 against the Browns, that's an underrated storyline. Is you got to have to match the Jaguars' physicality as well, because obviously they showed they can run the ball at a really high level against Carolina.
Yeah, they want to be a chunk yardage team. They want to get explosive. They want to get big plays and get the ball to all of those people that you talked about. But Liam Cohen comes from running the football. The Rams have done it with their stretch plays and their zone, and then you saw it with Tampa last year, and even going back to his college days. I call it the Ray Davis game, when the Buffalo Bills running back Ray Davis was at Kentucky, and they played Florida, and he got like 10 yards every time he ran the ball. And I remember as a Seminole supporter going, who the hell is that offensive coordinator? And he ends up coaching the team that I cover here in the NFL. So my thing is, running the ball is essential. It's not about whether you're successful all the time with it, but you have to be able to do it when you want to and when you have to. And the Jaguars in the past weren't able to do either. They would get to the red zone and have to throw the ball, and you know that 12th man on that back line is an extra defender. They were never able to convert third or fourth and 1. Now they can at least keep drives going. Even if they get 3.5 yards of carry, you do that 3 times and it's a first down.
For sure. And I think that's a major storyline, how the Bengals defense, and that's really the talk of things, is this defense for real? Is what we saw in the second half of that matchup against the Cleveland Browns, is that what they're going to be? Because they were really good against the run, holding the Browns to just 2 yards per carry. But now you have a team that, shocker, has a better quarterback than Joe Flacco, and Flacco played well, has weapons that are of the elite of elite status when it comes to Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. And now you have to think about this running game as well. And so I think the biggest story, I could totally make it about the offense, but I'm not sure anyone deep down is concerned about the offense struggling internally with the Bengals. I do think that what this defense is still a major question mark. And so there's a mixture of things, but I think that this defense, they're going to be challenged in a way this week that they weren't challenged last week when you just look at the overall skill players and the talent that the Jags have on offense.
Yeah, man, it's all about speed. Travis Hunter had 6 catches on 8 targets last week, and he had about 37, 38 yards. But you can tell what they were doing. They were option routes. They're being very patient. Get 5 yards, turn the ball upfield, get the little lean, and go down. But those things, as the season progresses, are going to turn into big games because he gets an opportunity to shake one guy. You mentioned Brian Thomas Jr. We expect a big jump from him. He scored a touchdown on an end around last week, but not a whole bunch in the passing game, right? And they've kind of been a little off, to be honest, during the preseason as well as training camp. And, he's expected to make that next step. I'm sure he will. But there's another piece to this. De'Ami Brown, who came over from Washington, didn't have a whole bunch of stats, but he played really well at the end of last season. One of those games was in Tampa, and Liam Cohen saw it firsthand. De'Ami Brown was big. And when you add the 3 of them, because they play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, those guys are all fast. So now when we talk about having to respect the running game, and you're talking about guys getting to their windows and stacking the defensive backs really, really fast, you have 3 guys that can do that, and that'll produce chunk plays when you get them one-on-one.
Yeah, that's the I don't want to say the fear, but my thoughts are like, man, they just have so many different guys to use and lean on in different ways. It's going to be interesting to see this Bengals defense, how they react. I also think from an offense standpoint, and it is a big storyline, of course, especially nationally. Oh my goodness, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, 1 first down and 2 net yards and all of those things. I think they're like, all right, keep saying it, because Joe Burrow did have a good training camp. Joe Burrow was awesome and was dialed in, and I thought had the best, not just the best training camp of his career, but it's the best I've seen him, period. And it looked like it in that first half against the Browns. He was 11 of 14 for 88 yards and a touchdown, and they were moving the ball up and down the field, scored touchdowns on 2 of their first 3 possessions, and then things stalled out. So can they get back on track? I'll say this, Tony. They need to. They have to play much better if this Bengals team is going to get to 2-0. And this is the other major storyline. Zac Taylor is 0-6 in week 2.
Ooh.
He has never won. He has never won in week 2. And so the Bengals are trying to do something they've never done, which is start 2-0 under Zac Taylor with Joe Burrow at quarterback.
Well, I was doing Locked On NFL last year, and when they lost that game, I think it was to the Patriots early in the year.
Yep.
I told whoever, I said, man, y'all watch it. And it ended up being one of the reasons why they came up half a game short to make the playoffs. I'm afraid that if people are looking at last week going, that's what the Bengals are going to do every week, they're wrong. They're going to have some opportunities this week. The Jaguars play zone. You get great receivers and a great quarterback, they'll bust that zone up all the way. I want to see if the Jaguars can force the offensive line of Cincinnati to hold on. You know what I mean? You got to be able to cover those guys fast enough and enough that you allow Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, who had a whole bunch of they only had 1 sack, but they had a whole bunch of pressures. That's going to be the key to the game. The key to the game is you cannot let Joe Burrow dink and dunk you with those receivers, and then you got to make sure you tackle Jamar Chase in particular, because he can turn a routine play into a big one. I think the key to the game is going to be right there. You guys' offense versus the Jaguars' defense, because they played well last week, but this is a whole nother animal when you're talking about the skill position players. And I ain't going to forget about Brown, the running back. It's going to be a big part of whether they win or lose.
No doubt. There's plenty of big matchups, and I'm excited to talk about the Bengals offense. I'm also excited to talk about Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
because I don't buy some of the narrative around Trevor Lawrence. So we can get to that as we dive into these key matchups coming up next. This crossover episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IHS top safety picks and awards than anyone else as of August. And from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Well, Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because you make more with every move. You got to make every move count, and make every move impossible by making impossible irrelevant. And impossible becomes irrelevant with Mazda. Move and be moved. Today's show is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or you just need a little extra push to power through your day, it is football season. It's busy time, Tone. And 5-hour energy transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-hour energy transfusion, it gives you the best parts of a clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy Snap and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com. That's 5hewin.com for rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st of this year. All right, Tone, let's dive into the key matchups. And I think a key matchup, and you mentioned it, is how this Bengals offense finds a way to get the ball to its playmakers, get the ball to Jamar Chase, get the ball to T. Higgins. They didn't make that and accomplish that goal last week. That's going to have to change this week if they're going to get off to the first 2-0 start in Zac Taylor history.
No doubt about it. I mean, some teams are just built top heavy like that, and they go in and you can know what they're going to do, and you still have to stop them. And when you're good enough, that ain't no problem. I mean, look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been that way. You knew they were going to throw the ball to Travis Kelce. Before that, it was Tyreek Hill. You knew exactly what they were going to do, and there was just nothing you could do about it. And then there are teams like Jacksonville that have a new defense, have a new defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanile, who came from Green Bay, and they're running pretty much the same thing with a lot of the same type of parts. So I think they played well last week. The improved play in the secondary with the Jaguars being able to just finish plays. Jordan Lewis, I did a podcast on him just 2 days ago. Jordan Lewis, man, was worth every penny. And one of the things, interestingly, that he reminds me of, one of the people that reminds me of is Cam Britt Taylor or Taylor Britt. And the reason why is because they play, they never seem, even if they look like they're out of a play, they play like their feet are on fire and they finish stuff. And I even saw Mark Duffner at Jaguars camp, who's in Jacksonville doing some radio. And I talked about him, the guy that's on your team, and he said, unbelievable. He told me, Wig, everything you say about him is right. And that's how Jordan Lewis has played. That's how Eric Murray played. He lowered the boomstick this week. Both guys that came over in free agency for Jacksonville. So, of course, Travis Hunter also plays on defense. I mean, whenever they give him a chance. So you're talking about Tyson Campbell, Jarian Jones, and Travis Hunter, along with Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray. Look, they're going to have a tough task this week. We know how good the guys from Cincinnati are. But the thing is I believe they're learning in the zone to how to play a little bit more sticky and to be more active. It's going to be tough, man. It's all on Trayvon Walker and the crew to make sure they beat up on that offensive line a little bit. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge matchup anytime you're talking about the Bengals. They're going to pass a lot. Chase Brown is going to be utilized, but he's utilized as much in the passing game as he is as a runner. And they did lean on him as a runner early in that game against the Browns, and it worked. And then it didn't work. and it went by the wayside a bit. He finished with 21 carries for 43 yards. Guess what, Wig? He had 43 yards at halftime on 12 carries. So 9 carries for 0 yards in the second half. And so, yeah, they'll lean on Chase Brown, but protecting Joe Burrow, it's going to be a big matchup each and every week. We talk about it, and it's a major, major key. But I do want to switch gears and talk about that other quarterback, the number 1 overall pick. I think Trevor Lawrence, and I'm not saying this because you're here. I think Trevor Lawrence has gotten so underrated nationally. All these people just brush him off like, oh, it's Trevor Lawrence. He's dealt with a lot of chaos around him. And I think he can still be a really, really, I'll say it again, really, really, really good quarterback. And I have pretty high expectations for him coming into this year. And so I want to preface it that way because I think Bengals fans need to be very leery of the former number 1 overall pick.
They do. He can make throws that'll blow your mind. I mean, but in the past, and I know having a good offensive line or a bad offensive line isn't an excuse because we've seen Joe Burrow have a bad offensive line and excel. But the difference is Trevor Lawrence didn't just have a bad offensive line. He had a coach that didn't seem like he lined up with what the GM wanted. And there was a culture of excuse making. Trevor had to come in the first year that Urban Meyer was the coach. And I promise you, they kept rolling that dude out there in front of the fans just to calm the natives because everyone was restless because of everything that was going on. He never got a chance to be a rookie, ingratiating himself with his teammates and just learning football organically. He also had to be a PR guy. And I think when things happen to guys at the beginning of their career, it takes them down a little bit of a road, man, that has to, you got to undo a lot of stuff. See, when you get them at first, you just have to load them up with what you want. But with Trevor, I think they have to undo a lot of bad things. The dude's going into his 5th year, and they're still talking about how the new coaching staff helps him with his footwork and make sure his eyes are in the right spot and gets pre-snap answers. When you're doing that, that doesn't mean he's not smart or hasn't been good enough. It means that he wasn't taught properly. So you're not just teaching him, you're unteaching him a lot of bad things while you're trying to do it on the fly and win some games. But he's a good football player, man. He had some little things he needed to clean up, but there's no getting past people calling him sunshine and the prince that was promised and all of this stuff in people's minds. And I think that is what you allude to, that the performance so far hasn't matched that. But also reality doesn't need to match that. Trevor Lawrence just has to do what Jared Goff has done. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have to do what Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are doing. He just has to be himself, man. He just has to run the offense, do the things that Baker Mayfield does, and be Clark Kent for 60 plays. And then only 2 plays do you have to turn into Superman.
Yeah, I like that mindset. One more take coming, and Bengals fans are going to hate this because I'm just praising Trevor Lawrence. I would take Lawrence over Jared Goff today. So,
of course.
And that's it. Well, you say of course, but man, I mean, Jared Goff, people love Jared Goff.
I know
but you know,
there's nothing like talent, man. And he has it. He has all the intangibles. The bottom line is their offensive line. The Bengals fans think their offensive line has been bad the last 5 years. I'm trying to tell you, I would be willing to bet you the Jaguars' offensive line was twice as bad. Their running backs got touched.
As bad.
Their running backs got touched faster than anybody.
Hold on.
So you see what Travis Etienne had 143 yards the other day, and everybody would go, well, it's 71 on 1 carry. Yeah, but he only had 14 other ones, and he got 72. What I'm telling you is that was unthought of and unheard of last year or the year before that. This line was terrible, homie. I mean, bad, really bad.
That's always been unheard of in the Joe Burrow era. I don't know how many games. They've had a couple games where they ran for that amount of yardage, like in that range, but it was probably as a team with a couple 140-yard games or so. But the key, as we talk up Trevor Lawrence, make him uncomfortable. You're going to have to take away the ground game some, not let him lean on that, because if you lean on that, well, then it's just going to make it easy for someone because he can be Clark Kent. So 1, put the ball in his hand. 2, when he goes to be Superman, make sure that you have 91 Trey Hendrickson or 97 Shamar Stewart or BJ Hill or any of these guys that really got some heat on Joe Flacco at the end of last week's game. Those guys are going to have to make Trevor Lawrence uncomfortable and get after him. I think that's a huge matchup because this idea, I'm not going to try to sell you on Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt, even though you praised him. He had a rough game last week, and DJ Turner and Josh Newton. I don't expect those guys to shut down Brian Thomas. I don't expect those guys to completely take away Travis Hunter. And so how do you neutralize those weapons? You get some heat on the quarterback.
I agree. And that's one of my concerns. Trey Hendrickson, wherever he lines up. Anton Harrison, the right tackle, had a little back issue. They don't really think it's that serious, so I think he'll be back. Walker Little on the other side. The Jaguars did not give up a sack last week. Part of it was because of pre-snap answers. The ball went out of Trevor's hand really quick. And the other part, to be honest with you, is Carolina is awful at rushing the passer. So this will be a big test, man, because you know I'm a Stewart fan. I know somebody that coached him at Texas A&M. I hit you up. I think I texted you from the Senior Bowl or something. And I'm also a big Trey Hendrickson fan. So it's going to be a tough test. Here's one of the keys, I think, for this game. Brenton Strange. Who is Brenton Strange? Played tight end at Penn State and was a second-round pick a couple of years back. He has arrived as a dual threat, as a blocker and a pass catcher. I think that's the dude that's going to have to catch the ball from Trevor Lawrence and keep the down and distance where it's supposed to be so that pass rush is neutralized a little.
It's an interesting point because the Bengals gave up some big plays to Harold Fannin last week, kind of an under-the-radar tight end for the Browns. We'll see how they match up with Brenton Strange. But it's time to get to what each team needs to do to win on Sunday. We'll do that coming up next. This crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And now that the NFL season is here, FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Bengals are favored on Sunday at home, and maybe you think they're going to handle business. Or maybe you think that Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are going to get to 2-0 and hand Zac Taylor his 7th straight Week 2 loss. Regardless, you got to get in on the fun with FanDuel, where they have all the props, all the odds, all of the options. You can live bet. You can do some same-game parlays. You can dive into all of the player props as well. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com and get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Tony, let's dive into this. What do the Jaguars need to do? Couple things they need to do to win the game on Sunday here in Cincinnati.
All right, so to get rid of the cliche, no turnovers, because we will both probably agree that those are things that no turnovers. Okay, so no turnovers. They have to do a better job at not getting in long down and distance situations. Last week, it was because of one play that was really a bang play where Trevor didn't get the ball past the line of scrimmage, and it was a loss of down plus the yardage. But there are like 3 or 4 instances where just even out of change of possession and coming off a timeout, they had a false start or whatever, or a holding penalty. They had a wide receiver hold somebody and it took away a big game. It negated a big game that was on the other side of the field. I never understand why wide receivers hold people, but you get 1st and 20. At one point, they had a 1st and 28. That's not going to work on the road. It's not going to work against the Bengals. And that means that Trey Hendrickson can be activated, and that's not what we want. So I think it's controlling down and distance because of unforced errors. That is the first thing that they need to clean up based off of last week.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that you talk about week 1, and that's a lot of teams. They're feeling that way, like unforced errors, sloppiness. Look, Joe Burrow got sacked on 3 straight plays, and I thought the offensive line overall was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's sloppiness and being able to figure out and communicate and all of those things. So I think that that's going to be a big one for the Bengals. To me, if the Bengals are going to be a playoff team and be as good as we think they can be, it's going to start and it's going to end with this offense. And so that's my first key. If they're going to win, well, Joe Burrow is going to have to play at a high level, and this offense is going to have to play at a high level. It doesn't mean that I don't think the defense isn't improved from last year. I think there's a chance that that's realistic. They're also not going to be led by their defense. So this offense has got to wake up. I think they're going to have to score in the 30-ish points range to get there. And so I would say that. Do you score 30? Check. Do you limit these explosive plays that the Jaguars are definitely capable of producing? And they have 2 Travises that can do that. They have a guy and Brian Thomas Jr. And now you mentioned Brenton Strange. I'm going to just put him on everyone's radar as well. and so, yeah, there's some explosive players there. So limit the explosive plays. If you do that, then you're going to give your defense a chance to hold up and buck up in the red zone and try to get off the field. If you're giving up explosive plays, it's going to make life much, much tougher. So I think those are the big ones for me. I'm not expecting the defense to hold them to 16 points like they did last week.
Yeah, if that happens, that means it'll be a tale of 2 games from what we've seen with Jacksonville, and then it'll show you how they have to do whatever they have to do to adapt to win. They had 5 turnovers, 3 turnovers in terms of like fumbles and interceptions that they got, but they also had 2 turnovers on downs. And as Liam Cohen said, that's 5 extra opportunities where we got the ball back. Mm-hmm. When you pass the ball a lot, as great as Joe Burrow is, sometimes things can happen that aren't your fault. The Jags got 1 interception last week off a tip ball. and another one off of a big hit on a passing play where the ball carrier fumbled. So I think the more that the ball is in the air, the more opportunities Jacksonville has to make big plays. And Eric Murray, who came over from Houston, along with Jordan Lewis, they just play a certain way, man, and they're always around the ball. And Foye Oluokun, they're always around the ball on that second level. So I really do believe that it's going to be a game of who does what better. Both of the teams know who they are. You said the number is 30. I think the Jaguars have a good chance to get to 30, not necessarily by touchdowns. Cam Little had 4 field goals last week. He hit a 70-yarder in preseason, and he hit it right down the middle. I think he hit a 56-yarder the other day. When the Jaguars cross the 45-yard line, they're already in scoring range. That makes the defense has to play them differently now, because that kid is a weapon, a serious weapon. That's what I think is going to happen in this game. I think he's going to get another 3 or 4 field goal game to go along with 1 or 2 chunk plays. Maybe they only earn 1 touchdown, but they get a chunk play from somebody, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, something to make this game come down to a field goal. And I actually think the last time we came up there, y'all walked off on us with a field goal. I think we reverse it this time and we walk off with a field goal.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me one bit. And I do think it comes down to a field goal game, but I'm going to go the other way, because I just think I saw too much of Joe, Jamar, T, this offense in general, Chase Brown, for them to not be much better. And in this defense, I do think it's improved enough to where if you do have a lead late, one of those guys is going to come up with a big sack or a big play. Or if the ball's in Joe's hands, trust Joe to make one more play. So I'm gonna flip it on you. I think it's 30-27 Bengals. Shocker. The Locked On Jags guy has Jags by 3. The Locked On Bengals guy has the Bengals by 3. I am stunned, Tone, that's the route we're going.
Oh, no doubt. All right, man, I got to pass this to my listeners here, man. There's a lot of people coming up there. You got to give them some food options. I'm not going, but you got to tell us where we need to be eating.
Oh, well, first off, if you're looking for some good wings, Knockback Nats is downtown. Perfect place for some wings. It's a nice kind of dive bar. You wouldn't imagine that they have elite wings when you look at it on the outside, but they do. So that's one to seriously check out. On game day, just hit up the Banks right there. It's a strip. You check out Holy Grail. That's going to be a really good spot to if you're not going to a tailgate, to enjoy kind of a pregame atmosphere. They have the door, so you can walk around and bounce around multiple bars in that strip there. So that's the strip between Great American Ballpark and Paycor Stadium. So that's where I would go. And there are a bunch of options when it comes to food as well in Over the Rhine. So there's a bunch downtown. Like if you're staying downtown, there's plenty to do and plenty of good food options. Breweries, Rheingeist is downtown as well. So plenty to do.
Yeah, well, I know the people coming up there personally, and I'm going to tell you right now, they ain't a chicken safe nowhere in the state of Ohio, because they're coming. And they're going to eat
back Nats. Knock back it up. Yes, sir. All right, Tone. I appreciate you. It was good to see you. That is going to do it for this crossover edition of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Bengals. Thank you so much for watching and listening right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.